People imagine they are most free when they believe not in religion but in science. And the tragedy is that it's when you've come to regard your own religious views as science that you are the least free of all.
Money and the law of attraction.
Swagger.
À-bas-le-ciel.
Behind the law of attraction, the idea is that your thoughts control everything in your life. Your thoughts create everything in your life. So whatever you're in today, wherever you are today, whatever you're doing today, that has been created through your thought process. And I 100% agree with this.
Because according to the law of attraction, if something bad happens to you, you've attracted that as well. Because you're not just attracting the good, you're also attracting the bad. And I think that is very unhealthy to obviously blame yourself for anything bad that happens to you and think that I manifested that. Or even worse, to look at other people and their misfortunes and think that they attracted that, so obviously they deserved it or whatever.
And that's what actually gets, brought to you in real life, is the lack of things rather than the abundance of things. So it's a hard thing to get your head around, and it's even more hard to actually put it into practice, because you'll find yourself often thinking about things from a place of lack rather than a place of abundance. And that's the hardest thing with the law of attraction. You have to feel as though you already have it before you have it. And that is the trick.
One thing that I have noticed that is very common with everyone that talks about the law of attraction and the law of manifestation, and that, anything that you think, you can bring it to life and attract it, whether that's a positive or a negative thing.
What you think about comes about whether you want it or not.
What I've noticed is that what all those people have in common is youth and attractiveness and being born in a privileged.
If you want abundance of money, you have to feel like you already have abundance of money.
If you ask for something, you'll receive it.
You have to be free with your money. You have to be stressless, because if you are spending your money thinking, oh my god, I don't have enough for this, oh my god, how am I going to pay my next bill, and that's how I used to live. Literally, I used to be so worried about spending my money, and I just always felt so tight with it. And it wasn't until I started to become way more relaxed with it, money started to flow to me.
If you don't have the privilege to have whatever you ask for, then there is a good chance you're not going to get what you're going to ask for.
For example, you could be, really want some like-minded friends. You really want some more money. You really want to lose some weight. You really want to do well at school. All these things. And rather than actually using the law of attraction, we end up scaring it away. We end up stressing about it. We end up overthinking about it, but thinking about it in a negative light, thinking about it from a place of lack. For example, you might, get up every day and be like, I don't have any friends that are like me, and no one gets me, and no one understands me, and I just really wish I had friends like this, and I don't know why it's so hard, and and all day, the whole story that you're telling yourself is that you want better friends, or you want more like-minded friends, but the vibration that you're putting out into the universe is quite opposite. You're coming from a place of lack.
Life isn't fair. Not all people on this planet have the same privilege, have the same luck, and have the same experience on this earth. And it has so much to do with things that are completely not in our control.
I honestly do believe that our thoughts are everything, because that's all there is, you know what I mean? Like, the law of attraction has to work, because there's no other sense behind why things happen to us and how things happen to us. And it's kind of like a similar thing to karma. I totally believe in karma. And even if this is a whole bunch of there can be nothing possibly bad that comes out of this.
À-bas-le-ciel.
Truth be told, I had 20 different ideas around my head that I was really passionate about, including in this video, on my walk home from the gym today. And I mean, now, I don't know. I think we're going to whittle it down to just one or two. most people contrast in their own minds the evils of organized religion to the virtues of disorganized religion. And of course, they won't refer to it as disorganized religion. They'll use some more flattering term like spirituality or seeking. And what I really want to warn you about in this video is that disorganized religion can be even more damaging. I think that people in the 21st century can more easily see the victims of organized religion. They can see piles of corpses. They can quickly Google it and look back on centuries of mass murder, genocide, and just really bizarre cultural practices, rituals, strange forms of violence, and insane, ridiculous supernatural beliefs that in the past, obviously your local priest or imam would not draw your attention to in the history of the religion, even if information about that history might be hidden away on a book, in a bookshelf somewhere. If you weren't seeking it out, if you weren't actively doing independent research, you wouldn't learn about those things. So just a few decades ago, when I was a child, I think you could say that the facade of organized religion was more convincing. And now in 2018, that facade is less convincing than ever. And people can more easily begin to question and discredit what organized religion has to offer, and they can recognize the dangers. But disorganized religion, self-styled, self-guided spirituality, I think it impacts people's lives in a very negative way that they may have a great deal of difficulty perceiving themselves. And religious views, from my perspective, may not always be considered a religion by those who believe in them most. They may even regard their own religious views as science. So I've met and spoken to young men who believed in social Darwinist evolutionary psychology, men who believed this kind of narrative about humans being formed by competition for resources, competition for dominance, and competition for mating. And in German, there's a saying, "Wie du die Welt anschaust, so schaust sie dich wieder an." As you look upon the world, so the world looks back upon you, so the world seems to you. There's this very scary thing where people who participate in these notions, what they perceive and what they fail to perceive in the world. No, not in the sense that they're going to walk down the street and bump into a flagpole that they didn't see because they have these beliefs, but the opportunities they perceive in life and the opportunities they fail to perceive, what they find value in and what they find worthless. In profound and subtle ways, it really does shape the way you see the world. And you can imagine, if a young man grows up with and clings to that kind of notion about evolutionary psychology, that's above all else going to shape the way he interacts with members of the opposite sex, assuming he's heterosexual. It's going to shape the way he forms relationships and the way he ends relationships and the way he pursues women and how he treats them once he pursues them. It may also, influence his competitive behavior at the office. It may have all kinds of other impacts. And once he believes in this, even though he has no priest, he has no church, he has no temple, he has no imam, no one's leading him, and he's not following anyone. And from his perspective, he doesn't believe in anything. From his perspective, he's merely more aware of a self-selected group of scientific facts than some other people are. This religion is all the more corrupting in his life precisely because he fails to perceive it with enough detachment to see that it is a religion. Now, if you watch my channel regularly, you may know that my father had 9 children. And my father, at different times of his life, believed in different ideologies. He had a Christian period of his life. And during that Christian period, he gave his sons Christian names. I think he had one daughter during that period also, but Not sure where she falls in that schedule. He might not have named her, actually. Sometimes the mothers had a say in the naming. So that period of his life, he was already a left-wing extremist, but he was a Christian left-wing extremist. And during the time when I knew my father, decades later, obviously I knew him as a relatively old man because I was the youngest of his 9 children. I remember once we were in the gift shop on the ground floor of a museum. And I was a fully grown adult by this time, young adult, but I was an adult. And I pointed to 2 different gifts that were in this gift shop. And they were well priced. They were not expensive at all. And I said, Joel, my brother Joel, he'd really appreciate that, if you pick that up for him. And I pointed out, there are a couple things that, Adam, one of my other brothers, there's, some of this. And I remember my father just shook his head and said, no gifts. I don't do gifts. I don't do gifts for any of my children. I don't do gifts for any of my sons. Somewhat bizarre thing to say. And I really stuck with it and kind of cross-examined this. I said, look, I don't care. I'm the kind of guy, I don't care if you bought me anything, you bought me nothing. I'm not like that. But I'm telling you something. My brother Joel especially, if you bought this gift for him, this is really the kind of thing he responds to. It's kind of a little cultural artifact. And he would really appreciate that when you were here, you thought of him at this museum, that you brought it from this place. And I said to him, I wanted the deal. I said, look, you don't have to give it to him now. You don't have to mail it to him. You can just hold on to it until the next time you see him, whether that's at his birthday or Christmas or whatever it happens to be. But just have it in your back pocket so you have a gift to give him the next time you happen to see him. Why don't you? This is going to take you 5 minutes. We're standing here together next to this gift shop. Why don't you do it? Why don't you pick it up? And my father's refusal to do this fit into his own self-selected set of scientific factoids that he'd put together. All my life, I heard from my father that in nature, the male parent has no relationship with children. And of course, he would choose the examples. He'd mention some species of mammal or another where the only role that the father had was to impregnate the female and then walk away. And even as a child, I knew counterexamples. Like I remember being, maybe I was 8 years old, maybe 10 years old or something like that. I can remember saying to him, but, I just was learning about, isn't there a type of bird where they mate for life and stay together forever? Isn't there? Well, I was reading, there's one species of monkey where they don't pair together, but then there's other species of monkeys or other species of primates where they do. I mean, nature isn't like that. I'd even read about, there were some species of fish where the male females, there's a species of bats. There is a species of bats where the male breastfeeds the child even, my father was hearing none of this. My father had, in his own mind, over many years and many decades, constructed a pseudoscience. A pseudoscience constructed out of genuine scientific anecdotes. And he'd put together his own view of what human biology and human evolution was supposed to be and supposed to entail. And what do you know? Conveniently enough, this excused him from feeling any guilt over the fact that he had 9 children, and in my opinion, he wasn't really a father to any of us. To some more than others, to be sure, but he was either a terrible parent or no parent at all to all these 9 kids he had. So I don't know if he was imagining himself as an alpha wolf or as, so which were the examples from nature that he had drawn. And again, I mention this because this it's not science. And the way he carries it with him and what he perceives and fails to perceive in the world around him, it runs so deep that was why, standing there in that gift shop, there was this absolute refusal to pick up a gift for 1 or 2 of his own sons, as I'd suggested. Who knows? But I mean, in a sense, it really is like, I don't know, the refusal to drink alcohol if you're Muslim or something, the refusal to do something that maybe just symbolically indicates that you're questioning the religion. Like if he lets in some weakness here, if he admits that there is supposed to be some sort of relationship and some sort of responsibility, maybe he starts to question other elements of the faith. and it all comes crashing down. I had a viewer, longtime viewer of the channel, write into me describing how my own videos on meditation had led to him profoundly changing his life, because he had been, up until he found my YouTube channel, he had been a true believer in meditation and putting many, many hours into meditation. I was just talking, really having Socratic dialogue just a few minutes ago now, with someone over the internet on a vegan discussion forum, and I was trying to get him to question. These are two different people. His belief in meditation. And his belief in meditation was partly scientific and partly religious and traditional. But the irony is, whether we're talking about meditation or the theory of evolution being weaponized into a Darwinian theory of social hierarchy and social competition, these different social theories, scientific theories, people imagine they are most free when they believe not in religion but in science. And the tragedy is that it's when you've come to regard your own religious views as science that you are the least free of all. In the same sense that a Christian creationist will insist to you that what he or she believes is not religion but is science, in the same way that a Holocaust denier will claim that their views are based on scientific evidence, in the same way people come to put together these ersatz religions without having any temple or any imam, perhaps without even having a god to pray to. And these are the ties that bind. They end up shaping how you perceive the world, what opportunities you see and don't see, and above all else, I think they do shape the most intimate relationships in your life. Whether it's the women you love or relationships of father to son, I think they shape them. I think they shape them irrevocably.
À-bas-le-ciel.